hello everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Earth's Mightiest Comics. This is the show where usually we talk about some new comics from the past couple of weeks or the past month or so, and we let you know what we thought about them, if we enjoyed them, or if we thought they were real bad, and you should not read them. I say usually because this is a bit of a different kind of special episode. We did one of these last year. It was my favorite episode to record last year. It's the one that I was most excited to record this year. It is, of course, our top 10 comics of 2024 list. This is something that we are doing annually now as we continue to do the podcast. And so, yeah, this year last year I had in particular, and I think Sebastian did as well, some trouble kind of filling out the top 10 comics of the year because we kind of had only started this podcast in like June. And so as a result, we were only talking about like half the year basically. So trying to fill it up was a little bit more tricky. This year, we were reading a lot of stuff and we did the podcast for the whole year. So there's a lot more that was kind of vying for the list. And as a result, there's a lot of things that I wanted to put on my list that I just couldn't because there wasn't enough space for it. But yeah, we're here. We're doing the top 10 comics of the year list. And so basically, the only real criteria for this is that there had to have been at least 3 issues that were this year. So yeah, I've got my list here. Sebastian's got his list there. We are going to start out with honorable mentions first because there's again quite a few that I wanted to put on this list, but just couldn't end up making it. The other thing is, I think we're going to try and do this without spoiling too much because this is kind of a celebration of the year in comics. And in case any of you guys, because I know like this year-end video last year did really well for us. So if there's any of you guys who don't typically watch or listen to our podcast, but want to maybe give some of these series a try, I want to try and, celebrate these comics and say what I think is the best of them without spoiling them. So if any of you guys are interested in actually reading some of these, you can go in, as fresh as possible. Obviously, ongoing series is going to be a little bit trickier to do that with because, they've had a much longer, a higher volume of issues this year. But I'm still going to do my best to not go into too many specifics there. So anyway, as far as honorable mentions go, I'm going to run through all of mine here quickly, and Sebastian's going to run through all of his. Then we're going to get into the actual top 10 list. And so, my first honorable mention I'm going to talk about, this is one that's, it's honestly it's in the middle of the pack of everything I read this year. And it's overall score, because I did, to kind of get an idea of what, would be making this list for me, I did average out the scores of every issue I read per series, so that I kind of knew, where everything kind of generally would be. And this one didn't have a terribly high score, but I did want to put it on here anyway, which is The Last Mermaid. This is a series that I ended up liking quite a bit. It is fairly low key, a lot of it. And so, a lot of this series, I was kind of going between a 7 and an 8 on our 10 scale ranking or rating system. And so as a result, its overall score isn't entirely, it's not all that high, but I did think it's just a really solid series. It's got a lot of the art's spectacular. It's basically a one guy doing this. Everything pretty much from the art to the writing. That's all one guy working on it. And I think it's just a really cool achievement. There was only 6 issues this year. It's the first arc, but just a really solid issue. Some great action. The action is staged impeccably and just beautifully rendered world. This post-apocalyptic world that just looks great on the page. My next honorable mention, we have Minor Arcana. So this is a relatively recent series that started. It is at time of recording. And I think by the time this goes up as well, there's only 4 issues out of this series. But just really cool. It's setting up a nice mystery behind, what's going on with this astral plane thing. Because it is kind of it's this kind of very mystical series based around, this person who goes back to her hometown. Her mom is this psychic in quotes, but this main character, Teresa, she thinks that, that's kind of all bullshit, but it's kind of her finding out that she has powers in that area, and there's some weird, creepy stuff going on there. It's a Jeff Lemire book. I'm a big fan of Jeff Lemire as a writer, so of course I was kind of predisposed to like this. It's really good though. It's just a really cool, good mystery, good character building. It's working for me so far. Next honorable mention I've got is The Ultimates. Now, there was a point where I thought this might go on my top 10 list. I think this started out incredibly well. It's basically the Ultimate Universe Avengers for anybody not familiar. I do think it's dropped a little bit for me, but that's not to say it's bad. I don't think I've given any issue of this below an 8 out of 10. I think it's a very solid series. And this one is really delving into some very topical real world stuff and translating it, I think, very nicely into this fictional universe. So I think this has been a really solid one. I expect that it'll continue to be very good as it goes on. This has really put this writer Dennis Camp on the radar for me. Before this, I kind of didn't really know much about his work, and like the one thing I did know was a Krakoan era like miniseries during the Fall of X that I wasn't a huge fan of, but this has very much put him on the radar for me. And so like he'll be doing Absolute Martian Manhunter in a couple months, and there's an indie Image anthology series he's doing over at Image later in the year, which I also think will be really cool. That sounds like a really cool one. So good series. Next, honorable mention. So this is where we're getting to the point where I think some of these honorable mentions will make Sebastian kind of irritated. But like, there's some stuff that I think is definitely on his list that's not on mine. This is the first one of those. Something is Killing the Children is an honorable mention for me this year. Now, this is we talked about this being Sebastian's favorite series. I don't know, by the way, we don't know each other's lists at all. So this may or may not be on his list. I don't know. But here's the thing with this series. I think it very often produces some of the best single issues that are anywhere in comics right now. And there are 2 issues this year that I think fall into that category. The problem is this year in Something Is Killing the Children was kind of an anthology year where the only stories we got, they weren't pushing the main story forward at all. It was a bunch of, flashback stories to just individual things that Erica had dealt with in the past. As a result, some of them were really, really good. The rest were, I think, solid, but there was one in particular that I think was pretty iffy, and that did ultimately drag this, series down this year for me. This was on my top 10 list last year. I kind of wanted to put it on there this year, but there was just too much good stuff for me to do so. So it is off the list for me this year and into the honorable mentions. This next one is kind of a dual series. Actually, I'm going to kind of combine 2 series into one entry here for this honorable mention, and that is The One Hand and The Six Fingers. Now, I'm doing this because, for anybody who doesn't know, this is a series. It's 2 series, but it's the same story told from alternating perspectives. So The One Hand is from the perspective of this detective as he tries to catch the serial killer, and The Six Fingers is from the perspective of the serial killer as he's trying to evade this detective and and just like get away. He's also having like blackouts. He's not sure. He doesn't really think he's doing it. There's a lot of mystery behind kind of, who the real killer is or why he's killing all these people, like what is causing him to do this, if it's even really consciously him. And the ending of both series, I think, is really interesting. I do think The Six Fingers is better, not by a huge amount, but I do think it is a little bit more solid. I just think that perspective is more interesting. But I think they're both very interesting and very cool, unique series. It's a very unique idea that I think ultimately paid off very well. It's written by both of these series are written by like very good writers. So I think this was a cool little series experiment here. Next one we've got. I debated on even putting this in the honorable mentions, but I think it does just earn it here. Universal Monsters Frankenstein, a series that, so there's been a couple of these Universal Monsters series by now. We had Dracula was the first one. It was amazing. Didn't make the top 10 list last year because there were only 2 issues out last year, or maybe there were 3, I'm not sure, but we changed it. Last year, it had to have 4 issues to be on the list. This year, it's 3. And then I had either 1 or 2 issues this year. So not really eligible for either of them, unfortunately. But it was very good. That's definitely the best of these series so far. We had Universal Monsters Creature from the Black Lagoon, which I think was very interesting. Had some great stuff at the start, but kind of faltered near the end. And then this one was pretty solid all the way throughout. But I think the main reason it kind of gets this high is because the art was fantastic. The Michael Walsh art was really spectacular. A lot of just really cool visual stuff that was in there that really elevated the series overall. So while the story I think was solid, it's the art that I think really pushes it up to that next level. The next one I have on my honorable mentions is the Power Fantasy. This is where I get into the ones where I really, really fucking wanted to put these on the list. Because this series, I don't understand all of it. I think I do get confused by some of the stuff this series is doing. It's, I think, pretty complex. There's a lot going on here. But I think it's a fascinating kind of story about what happens if these superheroes, there's not very many of them, but they all have the, power capability of basically an entire country's nuclear arsenal. And so it's kind of this Cold War-esque thing between individual people trying to keep that balance and also showing what that would do to these humans who have these powers and how that affects their, just general state of being. It's a fascinating read. I think it's a really interesting one that I would have loved to put on the top 10 list. But again, there's a lot of good comics this year. So ultimately it just didn't make the cut, but still very good. And this next one, I'm pretty sure this is on Sebastian's year-end list. Again, bums me out I couldn't put it on mine, but Ultimate Spider-Man is an honorable mention for me. Yeah, so this is my favorite Ultimate book this year. I think it's great. The reason it's not on my actual top 10 list is because I do think that as much as I like this series, I do think like there are points where it feels like it's kind of treading water and doing some stuff. It's a little bit more slow. I think the beginning was amazing, and I think it's picking up some really good momentum now. I think the points where it's going is really exciting, but I do think somewhere in that middle section, it kind of felt like it was just kind of either a big action sequence or just kind of treading water. And the big action sequences, actually surprisingly, while they're good, I don't feel like they've been that consequential in terms of story development. And so that is why it kind of ultimately didn't make it. I was bummed by that. I really wanted to put this series on there. And yeah, ultimately I couldn't end up putting it on there. But it's close. It's great. Everybody should read it. I mean, if you're listening to this, you probably are already reading it. It's a great series. But just didn't quite get there. Next up, I've got Superman as my honorable mention as well. This one is tricky. I'm actually kind of surprised I ended up putting this as high as I did, because I do think that towards the start of the year, it was a little bit iffy. There was that really cool Western issue right at the start of the year, but then the conclusion to the Farm and Graft storyline, I wasn't that big into. But after that, we had really solid stuff. We had the House of Brainiac crossover. We had the Absolute Power Times, which were actually very solid. And now with this current Doomsday, like, Time Trapper storyline, it's becoming, like, genuinely amazing. And the art from Dan Mora in this current arc is just off the charts amazing. As always, you know, Dan Mora's a fantastic artist. But yeah, this series, it's really got a lot of really good stuff in there. I think the characterization of Superman is just, like, spot on. This is another one that was on my list last year, just didn't quite make it this year. But I still think there's a lot of very great potential for where it's going forward. Just didn't quite make my list this year. And then the last of the honorable mentions is another one that's going to make Sebastian upset. Transformers is the last. It is the last spot outside of my top 10. This series I have grown to really love. I think the reason this is not on my top 10 overall is because at the start, towards the beginning of the series, and this series was still pretty new at the start of this year. I think issue 4 was the first issue of the year. So I didn't know a lot about Transformers before reading this. This is kind of my big introduction to the wider Transformers universe. Obviously, I know like the big ones. I've seen, 4 of the Michael Bay movies. So I'm familiar generally with this world, but a lot of the characters in this series are kind of more deep cuts. And so as a result, it just took me a while to like figure out what was going on well enough to really get into it. I found it to be kind of impenetrable at the start, just as I didn't know who was who and what was going on. The art, while great, the Daniel Warren Johnson art, I did find sometimes a little bit hard to parse and tell what was going on. However, when Jorge Corona took over the art duties, it like really clicked for me. I think Jorge Corona's art is incredible in this series and just in general. And the stuff that he's been doing to kind of make it, for me, easier to tell what's going on has really helped. And also, I'm also now kind of starting to have a better idea of who these characters are, and I'm able to kind of more easily tell them apart. And so I'm just really getting into the story now. I think it's incredible. It's a series that has grown on me a lot. And I think if I had maybe taken the time to reread through the entire series, it might have made my top 10. But as it stands, again, there's a lot of stuff that I like just a little bit more. So I am going to put this as the last of my honorable mentions.
All right. I don't agree with like 3 of them, but
yeah, there's 3 on this list that on the honorable mention list where I was like, I know Sebastian's going to take issue with this.
Yeah. That's fine, But hey, let's go through my honorable mentions list. I only have 7, but let's get right to it. We both agreed on this one. The Last Mermaid.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good, very good. Absolutely love this one. Honestly, for the art itself, just amazing. Story-wise, it's a very simple story right now. Not too complex or anything like that. I honestly don't even want it to get more complex either. I'm enjoying what it is. It's a very super simple, easy read. Like, I think it's amazing where it's at. It doesn't need to do more, honestly. So yeah, I think it's So that's didn't make it to the top 10, but honorable mention right there. Next one on this list, I have Ain't No Grave.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. This one was also very good. I absolutely loved it. There was one issue in this one where I didn't overly love, which was the one where it had like no dialogue.
No dialogue, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I had my problems with it. I didn't hate it like outright. I just was like, I found it confusing at parts without the dialogue to figure out what she was like trying to do and stuff. Like not do, I don't know. I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would, honestly, because sometimes I'm like, I don't like this much. It's too much dialogue. This one, I actually was like, it needed dialogue in this issue, but that was besides the point. But besides that, absolutely love this series. I think it was a great series. Just going through like this, I don't even remember the freaking person's name.
Ryder.
Writers, like trip into the afterlife to try and beat death. Next on my list, I have Batman and Robin, actually.
Okay, so I'm going to take a guess and say this is the Joshua Williamson run and not the Phil Kennedy Johnson part that's currently going on.
Yeah, so I was going to mention that. So like if you've been listening to the podcast, you know that right now I am not happy with this series. But I am referring to mostly the William Johnson run, I think is what you just said, right?
Joshua Williamson,
yeah, same thing. Switch his name around. I actually really liked his run towards the end. It wasn't even towards the end. It was kind of like I just fell in love with it. I really did. Like towards the beginning, we're like, man, we don't like this. And then I kept going with it, and then it turned into me being just like, man, I really like this. This is actually really good. I felt like they dove into like Damien's character a lot more, and like I felt like they let his character like just grow overall as like just as a character, just as a son to Bruce, and then as Robin to Batman. I think it just everything just got wrapped up really nicely, especially towards the end. I mean, and then they just like threw that all into the trash and just did something else. But besides that, I actually really liked the run, and I actually really towards the end I actually was really enjoying the art as well. So yeah. And then another one is the One Hand Six Fingers series issue thing.
For a while, actually, I thought the Six Fingers was going to be in my top 10 list, but it didn't.
I thought it was going to be too, but it didn't make it. It did not make it. No. But yes, this is actually also a very good series. Towards the end, I was unable to find them, so I didn't actually end up I didn't actually end up like reading the last. I read the last One Hand one, but I didn't like actually review it or anything like that. But yeah, I remember you being like, yeah, that was kind of confusing, and I was like, yeah, I was kind of confused towards the end. I definitely like the Six Fingers more than the One Hand. The Six Fingers one specifically was very, very good. I just love the whole mystery behind it, where not even like the killer knew he was like what he was doing. It was just, I think they just did a very good job of actually writing this story out and explaining it too, especially between these two issues. I think that was a very good idea. Next on my list, I actually have Daredevil, Woman Without Fear. So listen, we specifically, I know we both did not like the way this ended. We both hated it. But the reason it's on my honorable mentions is because I actually loved the way it began. Like, I think the first two issues were amazing, genuinely. After that, it started just going downhill. But just the way it started, I think, shows that this character could get, like, a solo series. And we're going to get another one, a Red Band one, which is unfortunate because that means I'm not going to get it until, like, 3 weeks later, which is very sad. Because I actually really liked this character as a whole as well. I love Elektra as Daredevil. I think she is amazing. And I really like her character in it. And I think it just started out really well with the whole fight scene between her and the Punisher and the train. And
it was Crossbones on the train, right? Yeah.
Crossbones on the train. And then the new Punisher shows up, who doesn't know how to be Punisher, but he's learning to.
He sucks.
Yeah. But I just really love the way this one started. And so I felt like I had a mention it honorably here,
That's fine, I guess. If that had been on your actual top 10, I would have been like, what the fuck are you doing?
No, generally it was, no, there's no shot. Next on my list, this one, due to a technicality on my part, honestly, I considered it a technicality. Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. Technically, it could have been on the top 10, because it was like 5 came out this year.
There were 4 issues this year, yeah.
I only pulled the last one, and so in my mind, I only read only the last one came out this year, even though that's not true.
Yeah.
Now,
I didn't even know you read all of them.
I read all of them in a single day because I actually incredibly love this. If I actually included this would probably have been like at easily top 5, might have been top 3. I absolutely love this series. This was a great series. There might be a sequel next year. I'm excited. I'll be excited.
It's not even a might. It's confirmed. There is going to be a sequel next year.
There's going to be a sequel next year. I'm excited. I absolutely love this series. Just the whole like serial killer thing, and then also there's like another serial killer that the serial killer doesn't know is the serial killer, and it's just the use of the animals too. I don't know. it made it seem a bit more like meaningful to use the animals. I don't know. It was just it kind of reminds me of Dexter, even though I don't like that show. I don't know. That's what it reminds me of for some reason. I don't know. But no, I absolutely love this. I love the art. I love the story. I think the story was great, especially the way it ends. And so yeah, it was very, very good. Very, very good series. And then the last honorable mention here, which I don't know, it's kind of a weird choice. Roxanne Presents Thor.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I considered this as part
As
of the
Mortal
Immortal
Thor.
Thor run.
Yeah, I knew you would. I
Yeah.
knew you would, and I don't. I do not. So yeah, I separated this from Immortal Thor, and I mean, I didn't like at first. I didn't like wholly enjoy it. Like, it's not your traditional comic, I would say. Like,
It's kind of unpleasant to read because it's
yeah,
intentionally bad, but I think the satire it does is very effective.
exactly. And so I feel like I had to just mention it in here, even though I could have just mentioned Immortal Thor as whole, because it's not on my top 10. Spoiler alert.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt like I had to mention that here. So yeah, I think this was but yeah, I'll just throw that in there.
All right, well, that would lead us to our actual top 10 here. And I'm going to start off with this is my only DC book on my top 10 list. And I want to be clear, actually, I think overall, DC had a better year than Marvel this year. I think it's going to be somewhat skewed, but I think most of DC's stuff was like, it was very solid or very, like, pretty good, like a good, solid series, but didn't have many, like, outstanding issues that elevated the series to be on this top 10. This is the one exception. It is Batman The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween. Now, if I was going purely based on the average score of the series, this would actually be number 1. The thing is, there were only 3 issues this year. And as a result, I don't feel like the sample size of the series was quite large enough for me to like actually put this at number 1 and feel good about doing that. So I dropped it to number 10. But I do just think that, like, for the first 3 issues, and again, by the time this goes out, there will be a 4th issue, but I haven't read that yet. This has been, like, incredible so far. I think the writer, Jeff Loeb, is kind of inconsistent. It is the same writer as the original Long Halloween, which is my favorite Batman comic so far. This, honestly, though, is almost better, I think. And again, early days, that could change, but I think this is just, like, an incredible follow-up to that original series and to Dark Victory, which I haven't finished yet, but I have read some of that. Just, like, the atmosphere and the just dark, like, oppressive nature of Gotham and all of the elements going around. It deals with a copycat holiday killer who's going after Batman's rogues, and it's a very interesting idea. It is, again, Batman in full detective mode, and I think this works the best out of any of the Batman detective stuff we have gotten this year. I think the other thing to mention, of course, is I was a little bit skeptical going into this because this series, right, and not so much this series, but the Batman Long Halloween saga as a whole, the kind of the mythos of this series, has been defined in large part by Tim Sale's art. And I mentioned this a lot on the podcast. Obviously, Tim Sale passed away in 2022, so he is, of course, not on this book on the art. But I think DC has done an incredible job of choosing artists. Each issue is done by a different artist. And I think so far, each of those artists, to varying degrees, but I think they've all managed to nail at least the atmosphere of the Long Halloween. They've managed to nail the feel, the vibe, if not through the actual art, then through stuff like the paneling. And there are, I think, particularly Eduardo Risso in issue number 1 does such an incredible job of just carrying forward the style of the Long Halloween while still, like, doing his own thing, right? It's his own art. It is different from Tim Sale's, but it carries the vibe of that series so well. Of course, again, this could collapse in like next year, right? This could be a complete disaster during the ending. But I think overall, so far at least, it has been an incredible setup to a series that I think is doing a great job of carrying forward the, again, saga of the Long Halloween, a Batman story that has, crossed decades and I think been great through all of them. So it's a great series. Again, based on pure score, it would be my number 1 for the year. But again, because it's early days, I did drop it down to number 10. It honestly has a good shot of being on my list next year as well. I think there's going to be 6 issues next year, so it may show up again next year. But for now, yeah, this is where I'm going to put this one.
All right. I mean, I didn't read that one, so I can't really say anything about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, I will say my number 10 spot here. It's Superman.
Okay. I'm
Small
assuming this is your
loophole.
only DC book on the list this year.
This, I believe so. Let me
Yeah.
make sure here before I say yes, and I'm just like dumbfounded when there's one later. No, yeah, this is the only DC book I have.
Yeah.
Which, like you said, honestly, genuinely, I think DC has had a better run this year. It's just I think Indie really knocked it out of the park this year.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
And so I have a lot more indie than anything else. But
that is, by the way, that's usually how it goes. It's just that last year again, I don't think we had read enough indie stuff to really make that connection. Yeah.
No, but yeah, small loophole here. I really only judged the last two Superman that came out on this list,
Okay.
but technically more came out. So yeah.
Yep.
But no, like truthfully speaking, the Farm and Graft one, like I think started out pretty good. Like it was pretty interesting. It was just kind of the way it ended, for me as well.
Unfortunately, that story only really had the ending of it this year. Most of that was last year. Yeah.
Yeah. No, okay, yeah. But just like overall, I think just the ending was really good, especially after they introduced like the new Unchained character villain guy that like absolutely hates Luthor and all this stuff, and then just I don't know. I feel like he could have been a really cool character, like hero wise, like cool little redeeming thing. But nah. And then the last two that we have gotten, I think, has been like, what was it 1920, I believe?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, 19 and 20. I think have just absolutely knocked out the park. The art itself is just amazing. The story itself, right now, where we're at, I think is also very, very good. Super excited to read the special that came out, I think, last week.
Yeah, it's good. I don't think it's amazing, but it's good.
So yeah, I think super interested to see how Lois got her powers. All this stuff.
That reveal is super cool, I will say. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. This is what I was hoping for. But yeah, I think Superman right now as a comic is just knocking out of the park, especially with the new All-In stuff. So just absolutely amazing right now. So yeah, that's average score out of the two that I actually reviewed this thing is 8.5.
Okay.
You will see that is actually higher than my number 9, but we ignore it.
I mean, my average score for last Halloween is 9.33, and that is higher than any of my other top 10. But okay, well, my number 9 is one of Sebastian's honorable mentions. It's Ain't No Grave. I was really happy that I was able to put this one on this list, because this is a series that I feel like has kind of flown under the radar, despite the fact that it's very good. And I think a big part of why it is so good is I mentioned a little bit earlier when I was talking about Transformers. It's Jorge Corona's art. This guy is a goddamn comic art superstar. Like, I basically did not know who he was before this year. But between Transformers and this, he has like rocked it up to basically being one of my favorite artists in the business. I think there's really only one series this year that I think the art is as good as this. I will be getting to that later. But yeah, story-wise, like, again, the setup it's cool. It's a cool setup, where Ryder finds out she has cancer. She's like this bandit, like train robber, outlaw kind of person, finds out she has cancer after like settling down and starting a family. And so just goes to try and kill Death. And again, I'm going to try not to go into too many spoilers, because I think this series in particular is one of the ones that's most worth reading on this list, in terms of the fact that it's like, it's a 5-issue miniseries. It's very easy to read. It's a quick read, but I think it's well worth it. And just the way it ends, I think, like, that's the reason it's on this list for me. I think the rest of it's very good, very solid. But the way this series ends is just like, it's such a like potent, powerful, beautiful ending. I think it's the only way this series could have ended in a satisfying way. And I think, like, again, the art in that last issue in particular, the final pages of this series, is just so spectacular. The way Death is rendered, the way that character design all comes together. It's incredible. That the art in Death's domain is incredible, but even some of the stuff just in the, physical living realm is just spectacularly drawn. And that is so much of the reason why I love this series, why this series is in my top 10. Again, the real kicker is the ending. I think without that, this wouldn't have made it. But I'm very happy it did, because this is a series that, again, I feel like has kind of been, it feels like kind of a hidden gem to me, where like there are definitely people who have read it who know it, but this is one that I feel like has not gotten the buzz and appreciation that I feel like it should have. And so I'm very happy to put this in my number 9 spot.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. Average score, by the way, I don't know if we're really doing this for all of them, but I gave it an 8.4 average overall between all of them.
Anyway, my number 9 spot here is kind of, honestly, I wasn't expecting to put this on here, but I needed to fill a slot here.
That's the best mark of a good,
And
of a
honestly,
good
I mean,
top 10. Fine, I just
I'm
needed
not,
to put something on here.
I'm not upset that it's on my top 10.
Yeah.
No, it's a pretty good one. Ultimate X-Men, actually.
Wow. Okay, this is much lower on mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like this series, but yeah.
I like this series. I actually included this one over Ultimate Black Panther simply like I was just gonna do an Ultimate book. I actually included this one just because it feels it's so different from everything
It
else
is
that I
definitely
feel
the
like
most unique of all of them. Yeah.
we are reading. So that's why I felt like, okay, if I had to choose one, I'd rather choose this one simply because of that. Like just the art style. I mean, it's mostly just the art style, honestly. I'm gonna
Very
be real.
manga-esque, yeah.
Yeah, I actually am really enjoying it. And the story itself, while it is getting slower now, honestly, I think at the beginning was actually very good with exploring the whole Dark King person thing, whatever, Shadow
Shadow
Man,
King.
the Shadow King, yeah. You know, that whole storyline I think was actually very, very interesting as well. You know, now that we've discovered all of that stuff and we're kind of focusing less on armor and more, I think what's her name, May, I think is what
May,
we're
yeah.
focusing a bit more on right now. It's actually kind of gotten a little bit more slower, which I mean, it's not like a wholly bad thing. I think we'll pick it up hopefully later on again, like with
Yeah,
the
I think
whole
so. I don't
Hulk
have you read number
thing.
10 yet?
I have not.
Okay, so number 10 is starting to take a lot of stuff into gear that I think will really ratchet things up. I think the next two issues are going to have a lot going on. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, but yeah, I think it's just been it's so unique and it's not bad at all by any means that I didn't mind including this one in my top 10 actually. So yeah, I think average score for this one I only include. Let me see. I have 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 8, and 9 here. So average score is a 7.57.
Wow. Okay, so I actually gave this a higher average score than you did. I have it a 7.7 even. I do like this series quite a bit. I think it's a very solid one. To me, it's above Ultimate Black Panther, but it is below Ultimates and Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But ultimately, yeah, I do think it's a very solid one. I do like how unique it is. I like how chill it is for a lot of it, and I am excited to see where it goes. Because I think it is starting to again really ratchet up some of that tension and momentum. So yeah, should be a good one. Okay, well, my number 8 spot with an average score of 8.57, to the surprise of absolutely no one, although I think Sebastian will be surprised it's actually as low as it is. It's Uncanny X-Men. So
Well,
what?
actually, you did like this one a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, this is serious. If you've been listening to this podcast in the past like 4 or 5 months, you would probably not be surprised to see this. I have ranted and raved about this series for like probably about an hour total, if not more by this point. The thing is, the reason why it's number 8 and not like and not in the top 3 for instance is that I do think it is not always super consistent in its amazingness, but when it is really firing on all cylinders, I think it's like basically the best book that Marvel has right now. Particularly issue numbers 1, 4, and 6, I think have been just stellar. I think for me, what really sets this series apart, or at least it did at the start, is that it fucking acknowledges where these characters have been recently. I was so irritated with how, all of these other X-Men series, and this has been ironed out a little bit now, but at the start, nobody was really talking about the fact that Krakoa happened and fucking traumatized the shit out of basically all of the mutants. Nobody was really mentioning that. And then this series comes along and just is like a character-focused series about Rogue and Gambit and Wolverine and Nightcrawler trying to process their grief from this like horrifying thing they've all just dealt with. And it's so well written. The characters are just so like lovingly like crafted and written in this. You can tell that Gail Simone really loves these characters and really has a deep understanding for what makes them tick. And also, like, it had clear direction from the start. We had a clear thing we were building towards. We had a clear, kind of roadmap for where this series might go. And it also has some of the just most cool, badass moments I have seen in any comic recently. Like Wolverine getting ready to fight an army of like demons while he's blind. We've got Rogue and Sarah Gaunt, the Hadge, like knockdown, drag out brawl. We've got Remy fucking like bartering and bargaining with a fucking dragon and getting the dragon to back down. Like, it's so cool. Also, of course, the art by David Marquez has been incredible. So yeah, this is, I think, by far the best X-Men series we've gotten this year. It's not perfect. There are definitely some issues where it kind of slows it down, but I think generally the character work here, the action moments, the actual, referencing to Krakoa while not like relying on that to build the series through, I think has been just really great. And so when the series works, I think it's incredible, and that's why I have it at number 8.
No, I didn't include any of the From the Ashes stuff on my list.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, did not. But I mean, of them all, I would have to say I think Uncanny X-Men has been my favorite so far. Trying to remember.
Yeah, this is the only From the Ashes stuff. Like, this is the only From the Ashes book that has done like well on my list at all. I think the next one down is actually Wolverine, and that's in 33rd. So
wow.
Yeah.
I really like the second NYX one, but then after that, I just
NYX is I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's fine, but not great.
Next one on my list is it's Spider-Gwen.
Okay, I mean, this series is way way down on mine. I wasn't sure if you were going to put this on the list at all, to be honest.
It is definitely going on the list.
Okay, I mean, this series is mid as hell, but
it's
all right.
Okay, listen. I wasn't happy with these weird random new powers that she has gotten, right? Which we haven't mentioned for like 3 issues, I want to say.
Yeah, it's been a little bit.
As well.
Yeah.
I was not happy about it. I thought it was very dumb. I won't lie. But
I think overall this series isn't bad. We had a bit of a rough patch in the beginning with the Chameleon, I won't lie. There was like 2 or 3 issues there where I was like, yeah, man, come on, we're doing. But I've come to really enjoy this one again with Black Tarantula, actually, which is kind of surprising to me because I thought he was going to be kind of a stupid character. I was like, okay, who's this guy? But I actually really enjoyed this one. I actually really enjoyed the art. I like where I like the story right now. I kind of like where it's going, honestly. Don't mind it. We're gonna see how this turns up because I know eventually she's going into the TVA here pretty soon. Actually,
yeah.
I don't know how that works because we
also know in
Solo.
In March, she's also going to space with Loki, it seems. So
yes, it's kind of weird what's going on with this series right now. But right now I'm sticking with it. I'm really enjoying it, and yeah, I don't have a lot to say on this one, but yeah, it's pretty good. Let's see here. There's 8 here. I reviewed the first 8, and it is at a 7.375, with the lowest score being a 6, and that was the third one. Every other one has been a 7 or an 8.
Okay. Yeah, here's the thing with this one. My average score for this was 6.5. It's in 79th on my list. I don't even hate this one. I'm kind of the opposite of you, though. I think the Chameleon stuff has been by far the best part of this. I like the way their dynamic evolved, and I don't normally like the Chameleon, but I think actually that was a really solid addition to the series, and it's the best use of the Chameleon I think I've maybe ever seen. For me, I just don't care about Black Tarantula, and the stuff where the series is at now, I'm kind of like, I don't know, like her weird friendship, mentorship with Jessica Jones hasn't been working with me, and so it's fine. I think it's okay, but I don't love it, certainly. Okay, well, number 7 for me, also with an average score of 8.57. I think Sebastian is going to be surprised that this is actually this low, because I have been nothing but glowing and positive this series, especially lately. But it's The Sacrificers.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. Now I think this is the first one that was on my list last year. This is the first return entry. It was higher on my list last year. To be fair, last year it was on my list because of 1 issue. It was issue number 5, and that was the issue that made me really click with this series fully. This year, I think this series has actually been better overall than it was last year. This series has had basically no bad issues this year, and I think it's been just really crushing it. The thing that works the most about this series is it's fucking depressing. This series is miserable. Everybody is sad all the time. It's this tragic, just huge, just fucking depressing series. But it has just enough of this hopeful kind of element and tone to it that it manages to, I think, not feel too much, too sad, too depressing, too oppressive. It has this just element of hope that keeps you being able to keep going and keep, wanting to see these characters succeed and for this stuff to work out. And when the series wants to, it can be real fucking cool and badass. I mean, the scene where Pigeon fights the foreman, which is at this point, time of recording, the most recent issue. Although, actually, at time of recording, a new issue just dropped 2 days ago. I haven't read that one yet, though. But that fight between Pigeon and the foreman was so cool. But again, wrapped up in tragedy. I think the reason why this is a little bit lower for me this year is because, honestly, the main thing is there was one issue where Pigeon, and minor spoilers, kills his first god, where I was unsure as to what the series kind of wanted us to think about Pigeon. I couldn't tell if it wanted us to think he was like going too far down this path, down this vengeful path, or if this was kind of supposed to be a triumphant moment for him, or if it was supposed to be kind of both, because it felt kind of confused in the messaging there. I think that has been well and truly ironed out, though. I think we now have a definitive answer to how we're supposed to feel about a Pigeon's path right now, and I think this series is just in an incredible place. Like, this is a series that works on a level that I think a lot of other Rick Remender stuff has not worked for me. It's got great art, and just the tragedy of these characters, but also the roller coaster from tragedy to hope has just kept me like fully hooked the entire time. So this is an amazing series. I wish I could put this higher, but again, I think there was a lot of really good stuff this year, and it didn't quite get up there for me. But still an incredible series. I knew for a fact this was absolutely going to be on my top 10, and I'm very excited to see where it goes in the coming years as well.
Yeah, I mean, I won't lie, mine is up, mine is on here.
Yeah, I figured it would be.
It's a lot higher than yours.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving on. My number 7 spot is Dawn Runner.
Yeah, Dawn Runner. I almost put this in my honorable mentions, but I ended up not doing that.
Didn't do it. But anyway, Dawn Runner. Yeah, I like this one. I think you made me read this. I made you read this. I don't remember.
Yeah, so I made you read it initially, and then I ended up dropping it, and then you made me read the rest of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, pretty good. I think personally it got better as it went on. Right. I thought the beginning was pretty all right. And then as we kept diving into the mystery and as we kept figuring out what was going on, I think it just got better and better until the very end where it was just amazing for me. I thought the ending was great. It's so good. The art, well, I won't lie, whilst they were fighting, not the best art at times. I think towards the end, it got a little bit better. It got a little bit more manageable. But yeah, just the mystery behind the two pilots and just like the actual robot thing, and just honestly the art of when she was like inside of the robot and like kind of like this weird like ghost thing for the pilot. It was, I think, just the art in that point was really good, and then just how everything just kind of like flowed into the end and how it all came like neatly wrapped up. I want to say I think it flowed very well. And so yeah, that's why it's on my top 10 as a number 7. It's averaged at an 8. The highest thing I gave was a 9, which is the last 2 actually. But yeah, like I said, I think it just got better with time as the series went on. I think it just got better. So yeah,
I almost agree. I think it started really strong, and then I think the middle is what's sad for me. I wasn't a huge fan of where it was in the middle, but I do think it ended spectacularly. And as a result of that, actually, I'm very excited because this same creative team just started a new series of DC called The New Gods, which I think looks incredible. Everything I've heard about it is that it's really good so far. It's just the first issue that's out right now, but I'm very excited for that. I think that could be amazing. And I really respect the writer Ram V. I think he's a really, really interesting writer. His work just doesn't always click with me, and this one kind of didn't in the middle, but I do think it ended really, really well. So I am excited to see what this team does in the future. Absolutely. Okay, my number 6 is a series that it was on hiatus for a while. It's kind of the big triumphant return. With an average score for me of 8.6 this year, it is The Department of Truth. So this is one of 2 entries from James Tynion IV that is on this list for me this year. Yeah, I think it's good. It's a really good, solid series about conspiracy theories and the power of collective belief. This year in particular, the big focus was on what happened to JFK, right? How did the whole thing between Lee Harvey Oswald and JFK go down in 1963? We finally, after years of buildup, got the answer to that, and I think it was mostly satisfying. And then the other part this year was the Marilyn Monroe arc, which I think was also like really, really good. I was really into that. I think the use of Babylon, the Lady in Red, her becoming more prevalent here is really starting to ratchet up the tension. And so I think the series is in a really interesting spot. We now know that this series is supposedly going to be pretty consistent until it actually fully wraps up. And next year, I think the way the direction this series seems to be going, I think it's going to be really exciting. I fully expect, to be honest, that this series will probably be on my top 10 list next year as well. But yeah, this is kind of, I read all of this series this year, but I am only considering the stuff from, that actually got published this year. And I still think that is easily enough to get it onto this top 10 list. I think, it also was nice because I didn't have to wait for the nearly 2 years that this book was on hiatus. And so I think, yeah, its return was pretty solid. I think it worked really well. Some good answers to some questions while also still setting up and retaining some of the mystery overall. So still very excited to see where this goes in the future. And yeah, very solid entry. Just good book. So number 6 for me.
I have enjoyed this less than you have. I will lie.
Yeah, you're also way, way earlier than I am in the book. Yeah.
Because if I had actually really enjoyed it, like I did with some of the other things you've given me, I would have just instantly read it, but I have not. So I did enjoy the last one. The last one was not bad, actually. But yeah. But anyway, moving right along here. Rook Exodus.
Okay. I was curious if this would be on your list. Yeah.
Is this on yours?
I'll never tell.
I mean, I told you where
You'll
my
have to find out,
was.
Sebastian.
I told you sacrifices was on my list.
Yeah. You didn't have to do that.
You can throw me a bone here. That's what I'm saying.
You'll find out soon enough, Sebastian.
Okay. I got Rook Exodus on here, and the only Ghost Machine book I actually have on my top 10 here.
Yeah, Geiger and Redcoat did not make mine. I'll say that much for sure.
Yeah. Well, if anybody has been listening, they will know that I haven't really been enjoying either of them. Of those two.
Yeah, I've dropped both of those. So
yes, you have. Yeah. I don't know whether I am or not, but probably will if you're not reading it. So. No, but yeah, Rook Exodus. This one has been just all around amazing, honestly. I think the art is great. I think they have just done such a good job with the world building that it just feels like you've just always known like everything about this. Like there's still some mysteries here and there, but for the most part, it's like everything the character knows, it's like we know. Like that's how good I feel like they've just done the world building. But not even to the point where it's like clunky either. I think they do it so well that it just like it completely flows. It just flows so well with how they're trying to do everything in this series. And so I think right now this team at oh my god, I forgot Image. Jesus, I think it's just been doing an insane job with this issue. I honestly would have included more of that whole announcement thing they did. Like it was Hyde Street and Devour. I think it was one shot. I'm not sure.
That was a one shot. Yeah, right? There's also been like the Rockefellers and
the Rockefellers and
Hornsby and Halo. Yeah,
I have so far read all of them, and so far I actually liked the rest of them actually as well. I've liked Rockefellers. I've liked Hornsby and Halo. I've really liked Hyde Street too. But I've actually really enjoyed the other ones from this whole that. Is all of that the Ghost Machine?
So it's all Ghost Machine. Not all of it is in the same universe.
Yeah.
Because there's Geiger and Redcoat are in the unnamed universe, and then Hornsby and Halo and the Rockefellers might be in the same universe. That's like the Family Odysseys.
That's those ones are the same universe. I know that.
Yeah, and then Rook and Hyde Street are completely separated from everything.
Yeah. Well, Hyde Street is with Devour. I know that, but that was a one shot.
Yeah, but that's also that's part of the it happened on Hyde Street. So that's also I just count that as part of Hyde Street.
Okay, yeah. But those two are separately separated. But yeah, anyway, Rook. I think Rook has just been insanely good just right now. It's just anything world building, and I didn't feel like they the fight between Rook and the bear. Ursa, the bear guy, I didn't feel lackluster, sometimes they do, where I feel like they rushed through the fight. It actually didn't feel like that for me, this one. I think they just did a great job with this story so far, and I think they are setting it up, the next arc, and I think it also looks interesting, and it also looks good. So yeah, I think Rook Exodus right now averaged out at an 8. Lowest one I gave was a 7.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I will hold off on giving any opinion on Rook Exodus because you may be seeing it later on mine.
On his list.
All right, but number 5 is not Rook Exodus. Number 5 for me, this is probably going to surprise Sebastian. Actually, it's World Tree.
Oh no!
This is the other James Tynion book I've got on my list this year. So here's the thing: it's kind of hard for me to actually talk about this series a little bit because it's been a while since we've seen it. Actually, I think the last issue of this was in like June, so it's been a while. Although I do believe it might be coming back in like a week from when we're recording this. I'm just going to double check that real quick, but I think that is correct. No, it got pushed. It's in January now. So this is we are. I am talking about every issue of World Tree that was in 2024. So here's the thing. I get why it would not be on Sebastian's list this year. I'm assuming it's not on your list at the very least, because it did take a detour. It did kind of go back, and this year was all about it exploring like the origins of the Undernet and how World Tree kind of stopped it the first time. And I do think that was a little bit disappointing for me, actually, personally. The thing is, the dialogue is still so fucking strong that issue to issue, I still ended up really enjoying it. And once I kind of accepted that this was not something that was really meant to further the main story that much, I did end up being able to appreciate it more. And again, just like James Tynion is an expert at writing dialogue. And I think the dialogue back and forth between all the various characters is excellent. Despite the fact that there's a lot of these characters that I still don't really know their names because there's kind of a lot of characters. But yeah, this I think manages to succeed on that front very well. I think the origin of the Internet and how World Tree stopped it is interesting enough. But then also I think the finale of this arc where we see Silk go up against Fear. You know, she has round 2 against Fear. Very cool. Very good. I think the art still is really solid on the whole. And so yeah, I mean, I still like the series a lot. I don't think it's maybe necessarily as good as it was last year, because this is another one that was on my list last year. It's the second of 3 series that were on my list last year that make it to this year's list as well. But I still think it's very solid, and I'm very excited to see where it goes in the coming year as well. Because again, I think James Tynion obviously is like very good at what he does, and I think he's basically a master of horror storytelling in comics. So yeah, good, solid series. I still like it. I give it an 8.6 overall for the year as well. Same score as Department of Truth.
Yeah, that didn't even make it to the rankings, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not even consider that one. All right, here we're gonna go into the top 5 here for me. Here we're gonna make this a big spectacular. No, we're not gonna make it anything. I'm just gonna go into it. Transformers.
Okay, yeah. So I knew this was almost certainly going to be on your list. Yeah, I wish I could have put it on mine. I just didn't quite make it.
Where did we start on this one? Did we?
Number 4.
Number 4, and I gave that one a 10. Wow.
Really? What? I gave that like a 7, I think.
Apparently, according to this thing, I did.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna look that up. I'm gonna look my score up real quick. But yeah, go for it.
But you gave it an 8?
Yeah.
Oh, do you think I remember what happened in number 4? No, I do not. I think that was
where Starscream like bombed a hospital or something.
Anyway, yeah, I think this is a great series actually so far. I was actually kind of skeptical about this one simply because, like, for me, Transformers, it's not insanely hard to do, but I feel like people just don't get it right. And I think that's something that
what you're talking about. The Michael Bay movies are masterpieces, Sebastian.
Okay.
No, I hate those movies.
I don't like. Generally, I feel like people hate on those ones more than they need to, honestly. Especially the 4th one. People hate the 4th one. I think that
4
one's fine.
Is abysmal. I
think
stand
4
that
is
movie.
fine. I really do. You want to talk abysmal? Talk about the 5th one. That was
I haven't seen the 5th one, so
you don't even. But if you watch the 5th one, genuinely, you'll think the 4th one was actually amazing. I'm gonna holy crap. We don't talk about the 5th one. It's okay. Going back to comics, I think they did a very good job with the characters, I feel like, actually, in this one. I think they grabbed their voices very well, especially Optimus's.
Yeah.
You know, because, and I'm going to relate this actually back to the movie because I just can't. Not the latest movie, the ones with the fucking animals. The goddamn.
Rise of the Beasts?
Rise of the Beasts.
That is the latest one, yeah.
That is not the latest one.
Okay, not counting Transformers 1. That's the latest live action one.
Okay, I'll give it that one to you then. Latest live action one, Rise of the Beasts. They made Optimus wary of humans, right? Like he didn't really like them, and it was actually the Beast that showed him that he should be protecting them. That is not the case with this at all. He instantly comes in, he's like, I appreciate all life. And he even feels sad when he steps on that deer and absolutely mutilates its body.
Yeah.
That was an insane
That was last year, but yeah.
Yeah.
I can still talk about Transformers overall.
No, yeah.
But yeah, I think they just grabbed his voice very well, and I think everybody else's on the Autobots as well, how they just kind of follow him, unconditionally, how they're just like, yes, we also, accept life, and it's the Decepticons that are just like, no, we hate, everybody, we don't care, we'll kill anybody, and, right now, it's we're a bit away from the main story, we're going back to it now,
Yeah, have you read that most recent issue, by the way, yet?
I have not. I have not read the most recent.
Fucking rules. It goes back to the main story. It's incredible. Honestly, that last issue was almost enough to get it onto this list. Yeah.
Yeah. I figured it was like, because I think it was the last 3, right, have been like just like side stories, if I'm not mistaken.
Last 2 have been, yeah.
It's been 2? Okay, 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then while they weren't bad, I did appreciate, seeing Starscream's like, rise to the Decepticons. I actually appreciate that because I hadn't known it. And the one in the actual Transformers 1 movie is way different from actually the comic one.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't really care like which one's the actual true one. I could care less. It was actually nice to know like how Starscream like became Starscream, because he's very different from when he wasn't Starscream, honestly. And so yeah, so I think they've just done a good job with honestly the world building as well, but just like because especially with like forming it, because it's also in the G.I. Joe universe. This one, it's just Hasbro universe, right? So I think they've just done a really good job of just like forming that all out, and just including it all into just this one thing. And then, like I said, I think just for me mostly has been the character development. I think they've just done a good job with the robots specifically. Some of the human characters are just humans, and I genuinely just like the human side of most of the Transformers movies are the side that I hate the most.
Yeah, there's a wiki in this series.
There is. They're bringing back wikis. But it's mostly. I think her name is Carly.
Carly, yeah.
I'm like, dude, you're annoying as fuck. But yeah, I think this Transformers series has genuinely has surprised me, and I think it's just amazing. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good series. Again, it was close to being in my top 10, and I would say it's definitely the best of the Energon universe to this point. And I do agree, like, the characterization is good. It's definitely better than the Michael Bay Optimus Prime, who's like a fucking murderous psychopath. So, yeah, good series.
Yeah.
Okay, number 4, to the surprise of absolutely nobody, once again, with an average score of 8.67, although maybe a surprise that it's actually not even higher, we have Immortal Thor. Yeah, so this is the third and final repeat from last year that I've got on the list. It's amazing. Last year, I kind of put it on the list to just fill out a spot for the top 10, because I did like it, but for me, like, the Utgard stuff is when the series is at its lowest to me. And this year did not focus as much on that. This year, it really fucking, I think, crushed it with the Earthbound stuff. That is where I think this series really excelled, particularly like towards the beginning of the year with the stuff like, again, that Roxxon Presents Thor issue, I think was really good, but also just the stuff with like Enchantress and Thor and the Minotaur, and just the musings on how capitalism can be quite destructive towards art. Like, that sort of social commentary for me fucking nailed it. And that issue where the Minotaur is talking about that, I believe it's issue number 9, is just astounding to me. Like, it's so impeccably crafted. The Minotaur's dialogue, like, yeah, maybe it might be a little bit on the nose. Sure, it might be a little bit blatant, but I do think that does not make it any less effective. For me, that was like, oh yeah, this series might be better than Immortal Hulk. I'm not sure if I believe that wholeheartedly, but, and again, the series is not over yet, so it may be, who knows, it could, definitively put itself above Immortal Hulk for me. It could make itself, could maybe make me feel like it's worse than Immortal Hulk at the end of the day, but I think as of right now, this series is absolutely one of the best things that Marvel is putting out. I think, it's not actually my highest rated Marvel book of the year, but in terms of stuff that is currently ongoing, it is the highest rated at Marvel right now. And again, like, that's the kind of struggle. Marvel overall, I think, is kind of in a real fucking weird and kind of shit place. But they do have these standout books where they put incredible writers like Al Ewing on this book, and they just let him do what he wants to do. And it's why I think Ultimate Spider-Man works. It's why I think ultimately Uncanny X-Men has been working pretty well so far. Although that could change coming, in the future. But like Immortal Thor, like, we are now 17 issues in at the time of recording this, although again the 18th issue just dropped. I just haven't read it yet. It's far enough into the series that I can say definitively it's very good, and I know I have an immense amount of faith in Al Ewing to continue this out to be an incredible series going forward. I'm so excited for every new issue of this. I think just the dialogue and the philosophical musings of the series and the social commentary, I think it's all on point. Again, some of the Utgard stuff is not as interesting to me, but generally speaking, I think this series has been just incredible, and this is the year where I think it really found its footing. So, again, this is another series that I knew for sure would be on my top 10, and was very happy to put it in the top half, almost in the top 3. Doesn't quite make it, but I think it is honestly, I mean, it could be in there. Any of these ones towards the top, like, could all be arranged in any different sort of fashion. And honestly, stuff like even the Sacrifice was on a depending on the day, could be in like the top 5 or top 3. So, amazing series. I love it. And number 4.
Oh yeah, it's not even on my list. Definitely.
Yeah,
I don't think about that.
that's
But
sacrilege, Sebastian.
is it?
This isn't on your list, but fucking Spider-Gwen is.
Yeah. Enjoy Spider-Gwen.
All right.
Anyway, moving on.
Number 4 on my list.
I know what this is, by the way, then.
Do you?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
It's Ultimate Spider-Man.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple things that I know for a fact aren't on your list.
Yeah, the
Actually,
other one, though, it's going to be higher. I know what your number 1 is going to be, so we don't even need to have a pretense there. I know what it's going to be.
It was the highest rated one.
All right, Sebastian. All right.
It's the highest rated.
Okay. All right.
Listen,
We all know you have a bias for this series. I know it's up there, so.
it's not biased. I swear. It's the highest rated. Anyway, moving on. Ultimate Spider-Man. I absolutely
Listen, I want to be clear. I love this series. It just didn't quite make it, but I love this series.
He
It's
does
great.
not like this series. Don't let him fool
Oh
you.
my God.
After every recording, he tells me, "God, I hated Ultimate Spider-Man."
Yeah, I'm just
Every time.
lying in my reviews. I'm just lying every time I record about this comic.
No, anyway, Ultimate Spider-Man, fantastic series. Just holy crap. It really brings me back to when we were doing our old show and we were reading Spider-Man and that one, and
And it was like the only good series.
It was like, yeah, basically back then, yeah, because nowadays, we have good series, genuinely. But back then in the day, like, yes, Spider-Man was like one of the few ones where I was like, man, I'm excited to read this week.
Now we have X-Force.
Now we,
That amazing series X-Force that everybody loves.
But yeah, I am genuinely super excited to always have to be reading Ultimate Spider-Man. It really brings me back. Like, I don't even know if it's nostalgia vibes per se.
Yeah.
Because it's not exactly the same. Because even back then, like, Spider-Man was a bit more well-rounded. Like, it seemed like he knew how to fight. He knew how to use his powers for the most part, from what I'm remembering at least. But this one, it's just also new to him. And I think it's just due to the fact that, like, he's older and it's a bit more difficult. And he has, like, his mind is more in, like, a right place. Like, he's more set in stone in what he wants to do and all this stuff. But, like, just, oh my goodness. I think they just do such a good job with writing his character, especially now that, he's married to Mary Jane. He has, like, an actual family. He still has Uncle Ben to, like, look to. J. Jonah Jameson as well is a really good part of the family of his. He's met Harry at this point too, and they've become like quick friends as well. We have Gwen Stacy in here too, but she's not as big of a thing right now. She's still like a big part of it, but like not as big. We got Otto again as well. Just he's in it as well. It's just, I think overall, just everything about this has just been amazing. I just love the way that Spider-Man just feels new again, honestly. I think that's what I'm just like really enjoying about this one, that he feels new and just not like, I don't know, because he's still quippy too, which is like, big Spider-Man thing. I really can't tell you what I really like just genuinely love about this one, but it's amazing. This series is so good. Art is also really great. Don't knock the art on this one.
Yeah, Mark Giacchino is one of my favorite artists in comics right now, so yeah.
Yeah, genuinely, amazing art. And yeah, I'm really liking the story, the Makers Council and all this stuff. It feels a bit more grounded than all the other Makers Council stuff that we are getting, especially Ultimates is like full force Maker Council.
Yeah.
We have Black Panther, which is, the Khonshu one, that's
right.
Makers Council. Ultimate X-Men is, we get one person from the Makers Council, like, introduced, I think.
Yeah, so it's kind of Viper, although she's actually not on the council. She's working for Sunfire, who is on the council.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we're getting that a little bit over there. But yeah, this one is, what was it? Oh God, I'm forgetting. Sinister Six.
Yep.
Quote unquote. And yeah, it's just all around just amazing. Let's see. Average score of this one was 8.5. Straight up from the first one all the way to number 11 here. We got 9s, mostly 9s. There was 1 7.
Yeah. I mean, I gave this series a score of 8.27. Like, I really do like it, and I think like ultimately this series is so good that I'm legitimately dropping ASM because of it. We just, like, as of yesterday at time of recording, learned who the new actual ASM run is going to be written by. It's Joe Casey, who's also kind of the shepherd in a lot of ways of the current 8 Deaths of Spider-Man, which I think is fine, by the way. But I saw that and I was just like, no, because Joe Casey has written a lot of Spider-Man in the past. I'm just like, I want somebody new on Spider-Man. I don't love where Peter is in 616 right now. And this series is really good. So it's like, I don't even feel like I need to bother with ASM when Ultimate Spider-Man is so good. So I love this series. I think there's a good shot it'll be on next year's year-end list for me, top 10. It just missed out on it. It was number 14 on my list this year. So yeah. Anyway, my number 3. Sebastian will probably be surprised to see this is this high for me, but it's Rook Exodus with an average score of 8.83. So yeah, I agree with pretty much everything Sebastian was saying. The world building is spectacular, and I think what makes it feel so natural is that so much of the world building is actually not done through exposition. It's done through the art. Jason Fabok's art, fucking incredible. Like the rendition of these big fucking mechanical animals, the realization of these helmets that all the fucking people who have like taken over the planet, that they all wear is so cool. Just every aspect of this, these giant mutated animals, the natural kind of facade of this terraforming that has been breaking down over the period since the people left the planet, and that kind of juxtaposition of the world kind of regressing from this kind of natural paradise to a more kind of hellish, harder to kind of habitate space. That's all incredible. And the art is so much of what elevates this series. Story, though, is also really good. I mean, as Sebastian said, the final fight between Rook and Ursa was super cool, and how Direwolf and the snapping turtle guy, how they all kind of fold into it as well was very cool. Also, Rook's character arc, I think, was very natural for the most part. It was maybe a little bit rushed towards the end, but I think the character arc of him, just wanting to leave the planet at the start, but then kind of coming to the realization that like his father died trying to protect his farm, and so Rook is going to die trying to protect his planet, right? Like he is resigned to the fact that he is going to either protect the planet or die trying. And so him deciding to stay and fight for the planet, I think that all worked. It felt very natural, felt like a very natural, continuation of his character. And yeah, just like it sets things up in a way that it's I'm excited to see where it's going, trying to find Direwolf's brother and everything. But it's also like, it is such a well-contained and well-written 6-issue kind of arc here that if this was it would be absolutely satisfying. And it would have been a perfect, I think, not perfect, but like very, very good 6-issue miniseries that just stands on its own for, years to come. But I think it also does manage to make me care about where it's going next. And that is something that not a lot of books are able to do these days. I find a lot of times that when a big overarching story ends, it kind of makes me feel disconnected from where the run is going. Because it's just like, well, the story that I got invested in just wrapped up. So, I don't feel the need to continue with this so much. It's why I'm dropping like The Flash. It's why I'm dropping Green Lantern. 2 series that I think were pretty solid. Green Lantern more so than Flash, but still I think they both had, some high points. But again, they're new arcs I just am not as interested in, so I'm dropping off. This is able to keep me interested, and I'm very excited to see where it goes. And very good series, overall so far. So yeah, number 3 for me.
All right, my number 3 here. My number 3 was
The Sacrificers. Just honestly, we really don't got a lot to say on this besides the fact that it's amazing. It's such a good series. I honestly thought after that first, first arc, I'll say it, because we had that little small break in between. I honestly didn't think this would. I thought it'd drop off a little bit and then get good again. Kind of like how the first one was, where we weren't sure if we really liked it, and I read it and I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. And that's not the case. It went in there and it was like, you know what, we're back and we're still good. We're better than ever. Not better than ever, but we're still good. We left off right where we dropped off. And just the story between. Just the story with Pigeon right now, just basically becoming what he is basically trying to destroy at the same time. With Saluna, learning truly like how I don't even know like what she's like. I don't even know what her story's trying to be right now, honestly.
Yeah,
she's just
their
trying
roles
to survive.
have reversed. Right, their roles have reversed, where Pigeon is now kind of becoming a god, where Saluna is kind of learning what Pigeon's life as kind of, this, in quotes, lower class kind of citizen is like, where nobody likes them and nobody respects them and they all just are kind of shit upon by the rest of society.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think it's been such a good series so far. Telling the story between the two of them, honestly. And, and then this latest issue, well, I think one of the latest issues, because one came out, comes out this week. I haven't read that one, but, the latest issue that I did read was, she had actually seen Pigeon again, fighting, I don't remember his face.
The Foreman.
Foreman, that's what it was. Yep. And I think it's just, oh man, I'm so good at storytelling the different just different stories in general, honestly, because we get Soluna and Pigeons in the first half, and then they get flipped in the second half, and it's just they did such a good job of just telling the stories and like keeping it consistent, I want to say. And then art we don't even got to talk about it. It's just amazing. But average score of 8.71, 8s and 9s only on that.
Yeah. I know I gave at least 110 to this series this year. It was very good. I do think also the other thing about this series this year is that and this is something that that another Rick Remender series this year kind of did not handle as well, I don't think, but it manages to provide like really good, like nuanced religious commentary without like going so blatant. Because there's another series that Rick Remender did this year where it was also very focused on like religious commentary and stuff. And while I agree with what that series was saying, the way it was saying it was just like, come on, man, I kind of get it, So this one I feel like did a much better job of that. And yeah, just very, very good series. Absolutely. I already thought about it, but very good. Okay, now for my number 2. I do agree. It's probably the same as Sebastian's number 2. Avengers Twilight is my number 2 with an average score of 8.83. Yeah. This one, I went back and forth between 2 and 3 for this one, but I did ultimately go at number 2. So yeah, man, I mean, like it was a damn good series. Basically just this kind of, alternate future of the Marvel Universe where everybody's old and depressed and the Red Skull is running the government. And so like, I remember when we were talking about this, as it was dropping, I kind of was saying that it's like the Dark Knight Returns for Captain America. I think that comparison was a little bit less apt as it went on, but I do still think it does kind of fit. I've also heard people say, it's the Kingdom Come for Marvel, the DC's Kingdom Come for Marvel. Either way, like it's really good. There's some really great, like just badass, cool character moments. Thor's entrance on the scene, I think, is really cool. Some good stuff with an alternate version of Hawkeye, who, she was kind of working, I think is like maybe almost like a Punisher-esque character, but comes around and manages to join the Avengers side of it. Great stuff with Kamala Khan. She has some really good character moments in there, and like Tony is kind of the heart of this book as well. And it's interesting seeing that because Chip Zdarsky kind of is not a huge fan of Tony as a character, but he manages to write him really well and write a really compelling version of him who ultimately is kind of the core of this series in a lot of ways. And I think ultimately, like, yeah, some great, cool action beats, great art by Daniel Acuna. And I think the one thing that held this series back for me a little bit was I did think the ending was maybe a little bit saccharine, where like the Hulk and Tony go to like Valhalla and they're hanging out there, and it's just like I get wanting to have a hopeful kind of resolution to this very bleak series, but I think the scenes of like some of the heroes like Kamala and Wasp and the new Hawkeye like rebuilding Avengers Mansion, I think could have conveyed that on their own without the kind of Tony and Bruce and Valhalla stuff. But that is like such a small criticism in the grand scheme of things and does not in any way ruin the story. So yeah, I just think it's kind of what Chip Zdarsky does best. Some good, like, societal commentary in there a little bit towards the end, mixed with just really good, fantastic character moments, mixed with this kind of oppressive tone for a lot of it, mixed with just, again, like really badass stuff and good conversations, character beats. It all just wraps up so perfectly into a book that I truly think will be looked back on in 5, 10, 20, 50 years as like this perennial evergreen classic. The way that we look back at stuff like, I don't know, Dark Phoenix Saga is maybe not the best example, but stuff from that kind of period, some of these big, classic books like Dark Knight Returns, like All-Star Superman, I believe is the title of that one, the Grant Morrison one. Just some of these books that have stood the test of time. I think this will be looked back on as one of those for Marvel as well. It showed me during a year where I wasn't super into Chip Zdarsky's Batman that he still has a lot of gas left in the tank and can still be one of my favorite writers in comics. So amazing series. Absolutely. Like from the start of the year, I think we kind of both knew this was probably going to be on our year-end list. And yeah, it makes it very high up ultimately.
No, yeah, very good series. I went into this not really knowing what it was going to be like, and I was pleasantly amazed with it, not even just surprised, just starstruck with this series. Blew me out of the park.
This series is amazing.
It's like the Captain America's, it's not even like Captain America specifically, but just like we'll focus on Captain America because he was like I want to say kind of the main character in this.
He certainly was in the first issue, and that's kind of where I was making those Dark Knight
the
Returns
Dark Knight
comparisons. Yeah,
the Dark Knight Returns of Marvel essentially, and genuinely they knocked it out of the park. This just between all the different characters, it's Captain America, Kamala Khan. We had like Bullseye / Hawkeye person. Thor.
Right, she was Bullseye. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, Thor. We got Luke Cage in there. Eventually we got Iron Man.
Daredevil was there for a little bit.
Yeah, he died.
Yeah, he died off panel.
Off panel.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did get Daredevil. I kind of forgot about him. Wow.
Yeah.
We got a Hulk, I think.
Yeah.
There at some point. I think they just did a good job of. Honestly, they did a good job of like keeping the mystery behind what H-Day was, right?
Yeah.
And then just behind the main villain particularly, and just they kept that a mystery, a great mystery, and then but just keeping the overall everything alive. I think just the world building was great. The character redemption arcs were really good too. The art was phenomenal, honestly. Fell in love with the art on that first one. Really good art. And I just think they did a really good job of just telling this story that, it was redemption arc for these heroes that, felt like they had lost it all, and, just retelling their story, and even getting people that, weren't truly agreeing with them to their side towards the end, right? But yeah, I think they did a great job with this one, and it's genuinely one of my most favorite series that I've read to date. Absolutely love this series. It's really, really good. It was sad that it was only 6 issues, honestly, but I think they did a great job of closing it out and not making it feel too rushed either.
Yeah.
So yeah,
right.
I think it's just really, really good, really great. And average score for mine is at 8.67.
Yeah, I think ultimately I'm kind of happy with 6 issues because I do think it meant that this is a very digestible, self-contained read that anybody can just jump into. Like, you do not need to know a damn thing about Marvel to read this. And I think it also means that it'll kind of stand the test of time. It's not this, huge run that has, ups and downs. It's just like this very consistent, amazing thing throughout. So yeah, great stuff. And now for my number 1, my highest rated Marvel book of the year. It's Daredevil. Now,
I know this is a troll because there's no
thing.
shot unless you're specifically being like, nah, it's my favorite character, so that's why. But otherwise, I know you're trolling. There's no shot.
Here's the thing, Sebastian. You're exactly right. I don't love this series that much. In fact, the average score for this series that I gave is it's 6.92. The thing is, I do love Daredevil so much. Daredevil is my favorite character. Daredevil legitimately made my number 1 last year, the Chip Zdarsky run. And I just love Daredevil. Here's the thing. I do think the execution of the series has not been great, but I do think there's genuinely good potential here. Because I do think while the ideas have been kind of dragged out a little bit too far, I still think there's potential within those ideas. I mean, some of the ideas are cool. It's just the execution of it has been iffy. I have had a lot of complaints about that, but yeah, it's not my number 1, actually. I tricked you, Sebastian. I got you. My number 1, it is actually an indie series, and it's one that I knew that Sebastian was not going to guess that I put it up there, because I actually dropped this for a while, and then I read the rest of it and got up to date. It's Napalm Lullaby, Sebastian. Now, Napalm Lullaby...
It's not Napalm Lullaby either. It's horrible.
Napalm Lullaby, Sebastian. It's Napalm Lullaby, which is a series that's the other Rick Remender series I was talking about that is much more kind of bashing you over the head with its religious commentary. But I do think it gets way better after we dropped it. Like, Sebastian should honestly read the rest of it, because after that point, it gets stellar. I mean, the 2 characters, Sam and whatever the other person's name was, I forget, them trying to escape the Citadel while being chased by this fucking awesome fucking character that's trying to chase them out of the city but also kill them. It's damn cool stuff. And yeah, it's not actually my number 1 either. I only read the first 3 issues. My actual number 1, Sebastian, and I think you'll probably actually believe me this time because it is actually my number 1, but it's still one that I don't think you would have really gotten because you did not read much of it. Helen of Windhorn. So this is a series that was not on my radar initially, but I did, as is sometimes the case, because I watch the Pop Culture Philosopher's weekly comic book review every week. This made Robbie, the main guy there, his pick of the week when the first issue dropped. And I was kind of skeptical because it's written by Tom King, who I think is inconsistent. I think a lot of times he has really interesting ideas, but they don't always work in execution for me. I think his Wonder Woman run, for instance, has been kind of up and down. But I was blown away by the first issue and continued to read it all the way through. It's a miniseries. It's 6 issues, and just continued to love it almost more as it went on. I do think, like, because the premise here is this, Helen character, her father commits suicide in the beginning, and so she goes to live off with her grandfather, who, lives on this estate that's kind of on the border with this other dimensional realm. And so she kind of learns to train with him and ultimately goes into this realm a little bit. But to be honest, like, although it is partially fantasy epic, that's not really what the series is about. Yes, Helen does have adventures with her grandfather Barnabas in Otherworld, in this, this other dimension. That absolutely is the case. That does happen. But that is mainly contained to 2 of the 6 issues. The rest of it is just this deep dive character study into this absolutely, like, heartbroken and just really fucking, like, in a rough space character. Helen is, like, she feels, like, purposeless. She is in this, like, horribly depressed place after the loss of her father, which was, like, her only family. And so it's kind of showing her through this, through these adventures into this other world and through her training. It's her kind of building herself back up and learning to kind of see the world as this, more beautiful and fulfilling and purposeful place at a time when she had kind of given up on the world. And, I think it's that character work that makes this shine, along with the absolutely stellar fucking art from, I've been pronouncing it Bilquis Evely. It might be like Bilky Evely. I've heard that, or Bilky Evely, or, I've been pronouncing it, I think, maybe wrong. I'm not entirely sure how it's pronounced, but her artwork, fucking stunning. I mean, it is like paintings on every panel. It is absolutely beautiful. Like, it's just this incredibly, visually just created world as well. And even the more mundane stuff is just so incredibly crafted. And this is the other art that I was talking about when I was talking about Ain't No Grave. I was referring to this one as the other one that was, very high up there in terms of the best art I saw this year. This is the same creative team that did Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. I had heard the art and that was spectacular, and it's incredible here. And so ultimately, like, there's no, like, big, climactic action conclusion, right? It's not that kind of series. It's a series about family and finding purpose. And it all wraps up together in that theme beautifully right at the end, to become this series that I just look on so fondly, even though some of the stuff, like, actually her travels through this other world, actually my least favorite part of the series. But I think the grounding in the character work and the development of this character was so, like, just amazingly, again, lovingly crafted from the creative team, that I was very happy to put this in my number 1 spot. I think it's incredible. I think this is another one of those series that will be looked on very fondly for years to come, even though this might also have flown under the radar a little bit. And it just kind of shows that when Tom King has a really solid plan, a really solid roadmap, he can still make some incredible comics. Like, he has a great handle on the skill of language. That's always been clear to me. It's just not always executed or conveyed in the way that I think is best. Because this is a wordy ass series, but it never feels overwrought. It never feels overly verbose. It feels exactly the way it needs to be to do this character and the building up of her, relationship with her grandfather and her kind of, caretaker Lilith. It's all just amazingly it's so well done. And so, yeah, absolutely my number 1 of the year. I kind of knew that was probably going to be the case. But yeah, it had an average score of 9.0 from me. Just an amazing, amazing series. It could have a sequel, but I kind of hope it doesn't. I think this is basically perfect as it is.
All right. I didn't mind that series. It was pretty good.
Yeah, you didn't read very much of it, though. I think you only read, like, the first 2.
Yeah, I did.
All right, now what's Sebastian's big mystery number 1? I wonder what it could be.
Right.
I have no idea, Sebastian. I have no idea what your number 1 could be.
All right, listen. It's, to no surprise, honestly. I have always raved about this series, and, not always in a good way. I won't lie, but...
All right, what's the rug pull? What's the troll? We got to get it out of the way. I know you got one of them at least.
Where's the troll? Why?
Yeah.
Right?
It's going to be like fucking The Flash or something.
No, God, I would not sacrilege this thing. It's so bad. No, listen, it's... Oh God, I'll throw one troll in there. Let me think of one here.
Okay.
Oh, I remember it. It was Infinity Watch. There it is.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Fucking shit event that none of us liked.
Yeah, no, that was bad. No, it's one that, it's been a while since we've talked about it. When we did talk about it, we weren't always happy with it. We would disagree on a lot, but it's gonna be Spider-Gwen Smash.
Okay. All right, Sebastian.
Yeah, I think this
Did
one.
that even? I need to check. Was that even this year?
That was this year.
Because I think
got
it started
3.
last year.
It
was
started
that
last
this
year.
year. Okay.
I got 3 this year. It counts.
I mean, yeah, it counts, but you hated that. It was shit. I know
I-
that's not your number
What
one.
do you mean I hated it? Average score of 9.0
Oh my
is not
God.
hated.
I think I
not
only read like
hated.
the first. I think I might have only read the first one for
I
this.
think you read the first 2.
I don't have the second one rated, so I think I only
Ooh.
read the first one.
Yeah.
Maybe I did read the
Listen.
second one though. I just don't remember. Yeah.
Listen, I think this one could have gone better.
I gave the first issue a fucking 4 out of 10.
Yeah. I told you we didn't always agree, we didn't always like it, but
Oh my God.
it's I mean it's not my pick of the it's not my top one. I'm not.
Yeah. I see. Here's the thing. You didn't know what my number one was going to be, so I could kind of pull off a rug pull a little bit easier. But I know exactly what your number one is. So
Yeah, mine is Something Killing the Children again, like last
what
year.
a shocker!
Listen to me right now, all right? This is not my fault that this series is amazing, and it is averaged at a 9, all right? They had 2
So here's the
10s
thing.
in here.
Okay. Here's the thing with this. Actually, it wasn't your number one last year because you thought you were real smart and you legitimately gave the Cole your number one spot and Something Is Killing the Children your second spot.
Second
So
spot. Yeah,
yeah.
because the Cole was also had back rooms in it, all right?
Yeah, okay.
Liminal
yeah,
spaces.
I remember, yeah.
All right, so it had to get the number 1 spot. But no, this is actually the series itself is amazing, and don't hate me for loving it. All right, it's great.
Listen, I like this series too. I also gave this series 2 10s this year. I just also gave it one of the issues a 6, so that's why it dragged it down. I didn't love that one where she was just hanging out in the treehouse.
All right, I have 2 out of 8, 2 out of 9, and 2 out of 10.
Yeah.
All right, so this series for me is amazing. I love the one where she was hanging out at the treehouse. Actually, I think that was one of the ones that I gave a 9, if not a 10.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, this series.
I know
as
the
a
two that
whole-
you gave a 10 because it's the same two that I gave a 10.
Yeah, this series as a whole, even though this year it was purely like anthological, just like stuff that had happened in the past that we never really saw. I still think they just did a great job with it. I genuinely think so. Just the way you could see her, it felt like she was reacting more to the people around her, especially since it was like just quick one-off stories. You actually saw her like just interacting with people, just like I feel like more, and it felt more. I don't know what the word. I'm losing the word here because I don't know what I'm. Because I don't know. I'm losing the word here. It felt more meaningful, It just
Okay.
seeing her interact with everybody, and like the latest arc we actually got. I know we didn't overly love the one with
Yeah, I didn't
Cutter
like
and all
one
that stuff,
much. Yeah.
but like overall, you see her interacting with these characters, and like yes, we know she like cares about people, unlike everyone, like a lot of other people in the organization and stuff like that, or she actually cares about the children. But I feel like since it was a one-off, it felt a lot more meaningful talking to the way she would like handle these other kids and all this stuff. But yeah, dude, this series, why do I like it so much? I don't understand. It's something about it just really clicks with me where I'm just like, oh my God, this is like every time I read it, I'm like, this was amazing.
Yeah.
Genuinely, and I could probably ramble on about like how I think of each character, but I'll kill it with art is also amazing. It also feels like somewhat unique, where it feels like not the same as every other comic that like gets released, where it feels like I don't know, Play-Doh-ish, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
It
Marvel
felt
in particular has a huge
Mhm.
problem with like plasticky feeling art. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So this one, it feels. I want to say it almost feels like watercolors, honestly. Like
Yeah.
Ultimate X-Men, like definitely feel like
It's very
100%.
streaky. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But this one just, I think the art just fits really well with it, and just the way the monsters always seem to, like they're like dark and they're not like super detailed or anything like that. They're like almost like shadow figures. I think they just do a really good job with everything about this series, and yeah, I love it, and don't hate me for it. But number 1.
Okay, so here's the thing. I liked this series, right? I actually, but I kind of disagree with one point you made about how because it's one-offs, the character interactions feel more meaningful. I actually think it's a little bit less so because they don't have quite as much time to develop those characters. So I don't quite agree with that. But I do think like, yeah, a lot of this series this year was good. I mean, I think I gave 2 8s, a 7, sorry, 3/8, a 7, and 2 10s. And Something is Killing the Children, issue number 40. There's a real like case I could make for that being potentially my favorite single issue of the year. It's probably either that or like the finale of Ain't No Grave, the first issue of Uncanny X-Men, or one of the issues of like Immortal Thor or Sacrificers. That issue in particular, the way it was crafted and the way it ratchets up the tension and everything is like top tier comic storytelling. And James Tynion, every year in this series, manages to sneak at least one of those type of issues in. So don't get me wrong, I think the series is very good. It's just that, again, that one in the treehouse kind of brought it down, and there's three other issues in that series this year that I thought were good but not amazing. And this series, or this year in comics, I think there was a lot of like stuff that had a lot of really standout issues. And for Something is Killing the Children to have 2 really standout issues, but the rest kind of just be okay, not okay, but like good but not amazing for me, just made it so that I couldn't put it that high. But I still like this series for sure. I think it's very good. Just didn't quite make it for me this year. But yeah. Anyway, I would wrap it up for this episode of the show, this special top 10 comics of the year episode. Thank you everybody for watching or listening, as always, not just for this year, but for any point during the year. We appreciate it. I know I've been kind of slow on editing lately. I've kind of been working a lot more than kind of usual. So I haven't been able to kind of stay on top of editing quite as much, but I'm still working on it in the background. Absolutely. I'm not just like, this isn't a case of me just not editing. I'm editing, just doing kind of more slowly. And yeah, we will be planning to continue this podcast in the coming year as well, in 2025. Should be some cool, exciting stuff going on there. We might at some point have to take a hiatus just because I need to kind of get up to date on editing, but we are planning to keep doing it for the foreseeable future. So yeah, thanks as always, everybody, for watching or listening again at any point through the year, whether this is your first episode or whether you've listened to every episode. We appreciate it. You can, of course, do all the typical stuff like liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and hitting the bell notification if you want to be notified when we post new episodes of the podcast. You can leave us a comment on Spotify or on YouTube. Let us know what your top 10 favorite comics of the year were. Let us know, were there stuff that was on there for yours that we didn't even read? I'd be curious to see that genuinely. You can also, of course, get in contact with us at our email address, which is earthsmightiestcomicspod@gmail.com. That is all one word. And yeah, you can also you can follow the show on Spotify as well, so you don't miss anything over there. So yeah, once again, thank you everybody. We appreciate it as always, and we'll see you next year.
Yeah, goodbye.